They sold her like cargo. But when she stood, the Alpha King saw the moon's crown burned into her skin. The auction hall reeked of sweat, iron, and desperation. Omegas lined the platform like merchandise, heads bowed, wrists bound in silver chains that burned against their skin. The bidders, alphas from rival packs, merchants seeking labor, rogues hunting for breeding stock, watched with eyes that stripped away dignity before coin ever exchanged hands. She stood at the end of the line, different from the others. While they trembled and wept, she held her spine straight, chin lifted despite the bruises flowering across her collarbone. Her name was Kira, though no one had asked it. To them, she was Lot 17, unclaimed, unbroken, unwanted by her birth pack. The auctioneer's voice echoed through the stone chamber. 17, no bond, no family, rejected by the Ashwood pack for circumstances. He waved a dismissive hand as if her existence was merely paperwork. Starting bid, 20 silver. Silence. Kira's jaw tightened. Even here, among the lowest dregs of wolf society, she was worth nothing. The rejection still burned in her chest. Not the mate bond breaking, but her alpha's words. You bring shame to our bloodline. Leave, or we'll make you leave in pieces. The shame wasn't hers to carry, but they'd placed it on her shoulders anyway. 15. The auctioneer lowered the price. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An Omega this damaged, this defiant, who would risk it? The great doors at the hall's entrance swung open. Winter wind howled through, extinguishing half the torches. Snow swirled across the floor like ghostly fingers, and every wolf in the room turned, instinct screaming danger. He walked in alone. Kira had never seen an alpha like him. Tall, broader than any warrior she'd known, dressed in black furs trimmed with silver that caught the firelight. His face was carved from northern stone, sharp cheekbones, a scar cutting through one eyebrow, eyes the color of winter storms. But it was the weight of his presence that made even the boldest alphas step back. Authority radiated from him like heat from flame. The auctioneer's voice cracked. Lord Thane, we didn't expect. The Omega at the end. His voice was low, controlled, carrying the finality of executioner's steel. I'll take her. Kira's heart stuttered. Lord Thane. She knew that name. Every wolf in the Northern Territories knew it. The Alpha King of the Frostborn Pack, ruler of the Mountain Kingdoms, known for his mercy toward the weak and his ruthlessness toward the cruel. They said he'd killed his own father to stop a genocide. They said he carried the weight of 1,000 deaths in his eyes. She's unclaimed, my lord, rejected. There may be defects. Did I ask for your assessment? Thane's gaze never left Kira. Something flickered in those storm-gray eyes. Recognition. Impossibility. They'd never met. 500 gold, he said quietly. The hall erupted. 500 gold could buy an army. For a rejected Omega, it was incomprehensible. Sold, the auctioneer stammered, before anyone could challenge the madness. 2 guards moved to unlock Kira's chains, but Thane raised a hand. Leave them. I'll remove them myself. He approached her slowly, each step deliberate. The crowd parted like water. He stopped 3 feet away. Look at me. Kira had spent weeks keeping her eyes down, survival instinct overriding pride. But something in his tone, not command, but request, made her lift her gaze. Their eyes met. The world tilted. For a moment, Kira saw through the Alpha King's cold exterior to the wound beneath. Loneliness so profound, it had fossilized into duty. Grief so old, it had become philosophy. He'd been alone longer than she'd been alive. Thane's expression didn't change, but his fingers twitched at his side. You're not afraid. I've already lost everything, Kira replied, voice steady despite her racing pulse. What's one more master? I'm not your master. He produced a key from his cloak and reached for her chains. The silver burned his fingers. She could smell his flesh searing, but he didn't flinch. The shackles fell away. Kira rubbed her raw wrists, confused. Then what are you? Someone who recognizes a riddle when he sees one. He gestured toward the door. Walk with me, or run. The choice is yours. It was the first choice anyone had given her in months. She walked. Outside, his guards waited with horses. The snow had thickened, turning the world into a blur of white and shadow. Thane mounted a massive black destrier and extended his hand to her. Kira hesitated. Why did you buy me? I'm worth nothing. He looked at her for a long moment, snowflakes catching in his dark hair like stars. Because when you stood in that hall, you stood like a queen in exile. And because... He paused, something ancient and weary crossing his face. Because the moon whispered your name in my dreams for 3 nights, and I've learned not to ignore her. Kira took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, impossibly gentle for someone with so much blood on his conscience. As they rode into the storm, she felt something shift in her chest. Not pain, but possibility. The rejection had carved her hollow. Perhaps this strange, broken king would teach her how to fill the emptiness with something other than rage. Behind them, the auction hall's lights faded into the blizzard. Ahead, the mountain loomed, crowned with ice and moonlight. And deep beneath her collarbone, where no one had looked, where even she had forgotten, an ancient mark began to burn. A crescent moon surrounded by stars, the symbol of the first Omegas, the ones who'd walked with the goddess herself. The mark of lost royalty. The frostborn fortress rose from the mountain like a cathedral of ice and stone, towers piercing the clouds, walls thick enough to withstand siege engines and winter's cruelest storms. Kira had heard stories of this place, the impenetrable stronghold where the Alpha King ruled with iron wisdom and an executioner's mercy. She hadn't expected it to feel so lonely. Thane led her through corridors lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on walls carved with ancient runes. Servants bowed as they passed, but kept their distance. She noticed how they looked at their king, with respect, yes, but also with something like sorrow, as if they watched a man slowly turning to stone. He brought her to a chamber in the eastern tower. It was larger than any room she'd ever inhabited, a bed with furs thick enough to drown in, a fireplace already crackling, windows overlooking the valley where snow fell endlessly. "You'll stay here," Thane said, standing in the doorway. "Food will be brought, clothes, whatever you need." Kira turned to face him. "And what do you want from me in return?" "Nothing. No one pays 500 gold for nothing." His jaw tightened. "I paid 500 gold so you wouldn't be sold to someone who'd break you. Consider it. An investment in cosmic balance." "I don't believe in cosmic balance." Neither did I. He moved to leave, then stopped. "There's a library 3 floors down. The healer's wing is in the western tower. You're free to go anywhere in the fortress. The only rule, don't leave the walls without an escort. The mountains are unforgiving, and there are rogues who'd love to ransom an Omega back to me. I'm not your prisoner. You're my responsibility." His eyes met hers again, and she saw that flicker of something, need, perhaps, or recognition. "There's a difference." He left before she could respond. Kira stood alone in the opulent chamber, feeling the weight of luxury like chains of a different kind. She moved to the window and pressed her palm against the freezing glass. Below, the fortress sprawled like a small city, training yards where warriors sparred, markets where traders hawked wares, a temple where smoke rose from offerings to the goddess. This was power, real power. Not the petty cruelty of her birth pack, but the kind that shaped nations. And somehow she'd stumbled into its heart. She unbuttoned her threadbare shirt and looked down at her chest. The mark had grown warmer since entering the fortress. the crescent moon glowing faintly silver against her pale skin. She'd discovered it 3 months ago, after the rejection. Had thought it was a stress rash, some physical manifestation of trauma, but it hadn't faded. It had grown clearer. She traced the symbol with her fingertip, feeling the strange heat beneath her skin. What did it mean? Why had it appeared now? A knock interrupted her thoughts. A young woman entered, carrying an armful of clothing, soft wools, thick furs, undergarments that looked like they'd been tailored for someone important. "My lady," the woman said, curtsying, "Lord Thane requested you be properly clothed. I'm Mira, your attendant." "I don't need an attendant." "Nevertheless," Mira smiled gently, "the king's orders. He's particular about caring for those under his protection." Kira accepted the clothes, fingers brushing against fabric finer than anything she'd owned. "How long have you served him?" 7 years, since he took the throne." "What's he like?" "Truly?" Mira's smile faded into something sadder. "He's the best man I've ever known, and the loneliest." She set down the clothes and moved toward the door. "Dinner is at sunset. You're invited to dine with him in the Great Hall, but it's not required." When she left, Kira stood holding the garments, torn between gratitude and suspicion. Kings didn't rescue rejected Omegas out of kindness. There was always a price. She just hadn't learned what it was yet. Kira chose to attend dinner, partly from curiosity, partly from strategic necessity. She needed to understand this place, this man, before she could decide her next move. The Great Hall was smaller than she'd expected, more intimate. A long table dominated the space, but only 2 places were set, one at the head, one to the right. Thane stood when she entered, a gesture of respect that shocked her. "You came," he said. "You bought me for 500 gold. Seemed rude to skip dinner." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Sit." The meal was simple but exquisite. Roasted venison, winter vegetables glazed with honey, bread still warm from the ovens. They ate in silence for several minutes, the crackling fire the only sound. Finally, Thane spoke. "Tell me about your rejection." Kira's fork paused midway to her mouth. "Why?" "Because I need to understand what I've brought into my fortress." She set down the fork. "My alpha found me. Unsuitable. I questioned his judgment on a raid. He considered it insubordination. The pack voted for exile." "That's the official version. What's the truth?" Her eyes narrowed. "You don't trust easily. I'm still alive because I don't trust easily." Kira leaned back, studying him. His face revealed nothing, but she sensed the weight behind the question. This mattered to him somehow. "The truth," she said slowly, "is that I stopped him from killing a child, a human child caught in the wrong territory. He said mercy was weakness. I said murder was easier. He rejected me in front of the entire pack and gave me until sunrise to disappear." Thane's knuckles whitened around his goblet. "He rejected you for showing mercy. For showing anything other than blind obedience." He was quiet for a long moment, storm-gray eyes distant. "My father taught me that alphas rule through fear, that compassion is vulnerability, and vulnerability is death." He drained his wine. "I killed him for that philosophy." Kira's breath caught. "You killed your own father?" "He was executing children, Omega children whose families couldn't pay tribute. He called it maintaining order." Thane's voice went cold as the mountains outside. "I called it what it was, genocide. So I challenged him, and I won." "How old were you?" 19. Kira saw him differently now. Not just a king, but a man who'd chosen monstrosity to end monstrosity, who carried the weight of necessary violence like other men carried scars. "That's why you bought me," she said softly, "because I reminded you of the choice between what's easy and what's right." He met her eyes. "Yes." The fire crackled. Outside, wolves howled in the distance, their song both mournful and defiant. "I should tell you," Kira said, "I'm not looking for rescue or redemption. I don't need saving." "Good," Thane replied, "because I'm not a savior. I'm just someone who recognizes another wolf who refused to kneel." Something shifted between them. Not attraction, not yet, but understanding. Two souls who'd chosen exile over compromise. Thane stood. "Tomorrow, I'd like to show you something. The Northern Temple. There's a priestess there who might answer questions I suspect you have." Kira's hand instinctively moved to her chest, where the mark burned beneath her clothes. "What kind of questions?" "The kind about symbols that appear on skin without explanation. The kind about why the goddess whispers names in dreams." His gaze pinned her. "The kind about why a rejected Omega carries herself like forgotten royalty." Her heart hammered. He'd seen it. Somehow, he'd seen what she'd hidden from everyone. "Tomorrow," she agreed, voice barely above a whisper. He left her alone in the great hall, the fire casting long shadows that looked like the fingers of fate, reaching, grasping, pulling her toward a destiny she couldn't yet name. "And now, I invite you to leave a trace of your presence in the comments. Tell us where in the world you're watching from, and the exact hour you hear this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel, and at what moments of the night they find you." The Northern Temple stood apart from the fortress, carved into the mountain itself. Kira and Thane rode through snowdrifts deep enough to swallow horses, the world reduced to white silence and the rhythm of hoofbeats. He hadn't spoken since they left the gates. She watched him from the corner of her eye. This king who killed his father, who paid fortunes for broken Omegas, who dreamed of names whispered by the moon. What kind of man carried such contradictions? The temple entrance was a natural cave mouth, widened by ancient hands and marked with runes that glowed faintly blue. Thane dismounted and offered his hand. This time, Kira took it without hesitation. Inside, warmth replaced winter's bite. The cave opened into a vast chamber lit by crystals embedded in the walls, each one pulsing with soft light. At the center stood an altar carved from a single piece of moonstone, and behind it, a woman. She was ancient. White hair fell to her waist, face lined with centuries of wisdom, eyes pale as winter ice. But when she smiled, Kira saw youth in her expression, the kind of timelessness that belonged to the goddess's chosen. "Thane," the priestess said, her voice like wind through pine. "You've brought her." "You knew I would, Celeste." "The moon told me 3 nights ago, the same night she told you." Celeste's gaze shifted to Kira. "Come closer, child." Kira approached slowly, feeling the weight of something larger than herself pressing down. The mark on her chest burned hotter with each step. Celeste reached out and placed a weathered hand over Kira's heart, directly above where the symbol hid beneath her clothes. The old woman's eyes widened. "By the goddess," she breathed, "it's real." "What's real?" Kira demanded. Celeste withdrew her hand and turned to Thane. "You need to see this." Thane moved closer. Kira felt his presence behind her, warm and solid. Celeste gestured to Kira's shirt. "Show him." Kira's fingers trembled as she unbuttoned her collar, pulling the fabric aside to reveal the mark. In the crystal light, it glowed silver blue, the crescent moon and surrounding stars clear as a brand. Thane inhaled sharply. "The Luna mark." "You know what this is?" Kira's voice cracked. Celeste answered. "It's the symbol of the first bloodline. The Omegas who walked with the goddess when wolves were young, who carried her power in their veins. They were queens, advisors, healers, the balance to alpha strength. But the bloodline was thought lost, killed off centuries ago during the purge." "I'm not royalty," Kira protested. "I'm nobody. A rejected—" "The mark doesn't lie." Celeste's voice held absolute certainty. You carry the blood of the ancients. That's why your alpha feared you. That's why your instinct was mercy when his was murder. The first Omegas didn't rule through fear. They ruled through wisdom. Kira's mind reeled. This couldn't be real. She was Kira of Ashwood, daughter of farmers, rejected and sold. Not this. Thane circled to face her, his expression unreadable. The dreams make sense now. The goddess was guiding me to you, not because you needed rescue, but because... He paused, something raw flickering across his face. Because I needed you. Needed me for what? The Frostborn pack is dying, he said bluntly. Not in body, but in spirit. I've ruled for 8 years with justice and strength, but without heart. My people respect me. They don't love me. And a pack without love is just an army waiting to fracture. Celeste nodded. Alpha strength alone creates tyrants. It must be balanced by Omega wisdom. The first bloodline understood this. That's why they were hunted. Because balanced power threatens those who rule through fear. Kira looked between them, panic rising. You want me to... What? Rule beside you? I can't. I don't know how... No one's asking you to rule, Thane interrupted gently. I'm asking you to stay, to learn what your mark means, to discover what the goddess placed inside you. And if I refuse? His eyes held hers. Then I'll give you gold enough to start a new life anywhere in the world. The choice is yours, Kira. It's always been yours. She wanted to run. Every instinct screamed that this was too much, too fast, too impossible. But beneath the fear, something else stirred. A hunger she hadn't known existed. The hunger to matter, to be more than her rejection, to understand why the moon had branded her with forgotten royalty. I'll stay, she whispered, but not as your subject, as your equal. Thane's lips curved into a real smile, the first she'd seen. I wouldn't want it any other way. Celeste clasped her hands together. Then we begin your training tomorrow. The mark will guide us, but you must learn to listen. As they rode back to the fortress, snow falling like blessing from the sky, Kira felt the mark pulse with warmth. For the first time since her rejection, she felt something other than pain. She felt purpose. Behind them, the temple's crystals dimmed. Above them, the moon watched, patient and eternal, as two broken souls began the slow work of making each other whole. Training began at dawn. Celeste arrived at the fortress with an entourage of priestesses, each one carrying scrolls and artifacts that hummed with ancient power. They took over the eastern tower, transforming Kira's chamber into a library of lost knowledge. The first Omegas were called Pathfinders, Celeste explained, unrolling a scroll covered in symbols identical to Kira's mark. They could sense truth from lies, see paths through impossible choices, heal wounds of spirit as easily as flesh. But their greatest gift was connection, the ability to bind packs together through empathy and understanding. Kira traced the symbols with her finger. How do I access these gifts? You already are. You've been using them your whole life without knowing. Celeste smiled. When you stopped your alpha from killing that child, what guided you? Instinct, knowing it was wrong. That was your gift speaking. The ability to see the path of mercy when others see only violence. Celeste placed a hand over Kira's mark. Now we teach you to channel it consciously. The lessons were grueling. Meditation until Kira's mind felt raw. Exercises in reading emotions, sensing intentions, projecting calm into chaos. Celeste brought warriors to spar with her, not physically, but mentally. Kira learned to feel their fears, their angers, their secret griefs. It was exhausting and exhilarating. 3 weeks into training, Thane began attending sessions. He sat at the chamber's edge, watching silently as Kira worked. His presence was both distraction and anchor. She found herself performing better when those storm-gray eyes were on her. One evening, After the priestesses left, Thane remained. "You're progressing faster than Celeste expected," he said. Kira wiped sweat from her brow, muscles trembling from holding meditation poses. "I'm motivated." "By what?" She considered the question. "By proving my alpha wrong, by understanding why I was born different, by—" She hesitated. "By not wanting to disappoint you." Thane stood and crossed to her. "You could never disappoint me. You don't know that. I know you stopped a murder when it would have been easier to look away. I know you refused to kneel in an auction hall when breaking would have bought you comfort. I know you chose truth over safety every time." He was close now, close enough that she could smell pine and snow on his skin. "Those things don't change, Kira. They're not skills to be learned. They're who you are." She looked up at him, this king who'd killed for mercy, who ruled with the loneliness of someone who'd never let anyone close. "Why did you really buy me? The truth this time." His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because I'm tired of being alone. Because 8 years of ruling with only strength has carved me hollow. Because when I saw you stand in that hall, like exile was a crown instead of a curse." He exhaled slowly. "I recognized someone who understood the cost of doing what's right. I'm not strong like you. You're stronger." His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. Strength that breaks things is easy to find. Strength that builds them is rare. The air between them changed. Kira felt it like a shift in gravity, the pull toward him, the dangerous intimacy of two people who'd seen each other's wounds and hadn't looked away. She stepped back. "I can't be what you need." "What do you think I need?" "A queen, a partner, someone whole." Thane's laugh was bitter. "I'm the furthest thing from whole. I killed my father. I execute traitors. I've made decisions that haunt me every time I close my eyes." He met her gaze. "I don't need someone whole, Kira. I need someone who understands that broken things can still be beautiful." Before she could respond, a commotion erupted from the courtyard below. Shouts, the clash of steel. Thane's entire body went rigid, alpha instinct flaring. They rushed to the window. Below, the gates were under attack, not by an army, but by a small group of wolves fighting with desperate fury. Even from this distance, Kira recognized the leader's stance, the cruel set of his shoulders. Her former alpha had come for her. Thane's voice went cold as death. "Stay here." "No." Kira grabbed his arm. "This is my fight. He'll kill you. Then I'll die standing." She looked at him with absolute certainty. "I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. If I'm truly descended from queens, then I face this like one." Something fierce and proud flashed in Thane's eyes. "Then we face it together." They descended the tower stairs 2 at a time, Kira's mark burning hotter with each step, as if the goddess herself was preparing her for battle. The courtyard was chaos. Thane's warriors had the attackers surrounded, but held back from killing, waiting for their king's command. Kira's former alpha, Marcus, stood in the center with 4 of his pack, bloodied but defiant. He saw her descending the steps beside Thane and smiled, all teeth and malice. "There's my runaway Omega, came to fetch you home." "I'm not yours to fetch," Kira replied, voice steady despite her racing heart. "I paid good silver for you at that auction. That makes you mine by law." Thane stepped forward. "I paid 500 gold. That makes her mine by higher law. Leave my territory, Marcus, before I add your head to the wall." Marcus laughed. "The mighty Alpha King, hiding behind an Omega. How far you've fallen, Thane." His eyes found Kira again. "I know what you are. Saw that mark when you undressed after training. First bloodline, extinct royalty walking around in peasant skin." Kira's breath caught. He'd known. All along, he'd known what she was. "That's why you rejected me. Not because I showed mercy, because you were afraid of what I represented." "Afraid?" Marcus spat. I'm not afraid of a dead bloodline. I'm disgusted by it. The first Omegas preached balance, mercy, weakness. They nearly destroyed wolf society with their soft laws. Good riddance, they're gone. Except I'm not gone, Kira said quietly. I'm right here, and I'm not the weak thing you convinced me I was. She stepped away from Thane, walking forward until she stood between the two alphas. The mark on her chest blazed with heat, visible even through her clothes as silver light. Marcus's eyes widened. What are you? Kira closed her eyes and reached inside herself, to the place Celeste had taught her to find, the place where the Pathfinder gift lived, ancient and patient. She felt it unfurl like wings, felt it spread outward in waves, and suddenly she could feel everything. Marcus's fear beneath his bravado, his pack's exhaustion, their doubt in following him here. Thane's warrior's confusion about whether to kill or capture. Thane himself, his rage fighting his discipline, his desire to protect her warring with his respect for her strength. She could feel the threads connecting them all, the invisible bonds of pack and purpose and power. And she understood, finally, what the first Omegas had done. They'd woven wolves together, not through force, but through truth. You're afraid, she said to Marcus, opening her eyes. Not of me, of yourself. Of what you'd become if you admitted mercy wasn't weakness. You rejected me because I held up a mirror and you hated what you saw. Marcus's hand went to his sword. Enough philosophy. Draw that blade, Thane growled, and you won't leave here breathing. But Kira raised a hand, stopping him. No, this isn't about violence, it's about choice. She looked at Marcus's pack, at the 4 wolves who'd followed him here. You don't have to be like him. You don't have to choose fear over wisdom. The goddess gave you free will. Use it. One by one, Marcus's wolves lowered their weapons. The youngest, a female barely past her first shift, stepped away from her alpha entirely. Traitors, Marcus snarled. I'll have you all. You'll have nothing, the young female said. We followed you because we thought strength meant ruthlessness. But she's right. We've become monsters. Marcus turned on Kira, murder in his eyes. You did this. You poisoned them. I showed them truth, Kira corrected. What they do with it is their choice. He lunged. Thane moved faster than thought, intercepting Marcus mid-strike. They went down in a tangle of claws and fury, alpha dominance colliding. The courtyard erupted in shouts, warriors moving to intervene, but Kira felt it. The moment Thane's control slipped, the moment his rage eclipsed his judgment. She saw the path it would take. Marcus dead, his pack scattered, Thane wearing another death, like a stone around his neck. Enough! Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried power that silenced everyone. The mark on her chest flared brilliant silver blue, and for a moment the goddess's presence filled the courtyard, vast, ancient, undeniable. Thane and Marcus froze mid-fight. This ends now, Kira said. Not with death, with justice. She looked at Marcus. You came here for me. You thought I was property, but I'm not. I never was. I'm descended from queens who understood that true power isn't taking, it's giving. So here's what I give you, your life and exile. Leave the northern territories. Build a new pack if you can. Learn mercy or don't, but you'll never touch me again. Marcus stared at her, blood dripping from his lip, and for the first time she saw him clearly, a small man trying to feel big through cruelty. She almost pitied him. Go, Thane said, standing, and be grateful she's more merciful than I am. Marcus and his remaining loyal wolves retreated. The young female who'd defected approached Kira and knelt. I'd like to stay, if you'll have me. Kira helped her up. No one kneels here, but yes, you're welcome. As the gates closed, Thane turned to Kira. His eyes held something she couldn't quite name. Awe, perhaps, or recognition. That, he said softly, was what the first bloodline was meant to do. Not rule, heal. Kira felt exhaustion crash over her, the mark's power fading to embers. I just didn't want more death. I know. He caught her as she swayed, exhaustion overwhelming her. And that's exactly why the goddess chose you. Comment Luna if you'd walk through the storm for someone who saw your worth. The weeks following Marcus's exile passed in a blur of training and transformation. Word of Kira's mark spread through the fortress, then beyond it. Wolves from neighboring packs began arriving, not to challenge, but to witness, to see if the rumors were true. The first bloodline, reborn. Celeste pushed Kira harder, unlocking abilities she'd never imagined. She learned to sense illness before it manifested, to calm fear with a touch, to read the truth in spoken words. The Pathfinder gift grew stronger each day until she could walk through the fortress and feel the emotional undercurrents of everyone she passed. It was overwhelming and necessary. Thane began including her in council meetings. At first, the advisors bristled, and Omega rejected no less, advising the Alpha King. But Kira proved invaluable. She could sense when negotiations were sincere, when warriors hid injuries, when disputes stemmed from pride rather than principle. Slowly, the fortress changed. Warriors sought her counsel alongside Thane's commands. Omegas who'd lived in fearful silence began speaking up, emboldened by her presence. The rigid hierarchy that had defined the Frostborn pack for generations began to soften into something more balanced. One evening, Thane found her in the library, surrounded by scrolls detailing the first bloodline's history. "You should rest," he said. "You've been here since dawn." "I'm trying to understand what I'm supposed to do with all this." She gestured at the scrolls. "The first Omegas had centuries to master their gifts. I have weeks, maybe months, before someone decides I'm a threat." Thane sat across from her. "You think someone will come for you?" "I know they will. Marcus wasn't the only Alpha who fears what I represent. Balance threatens those who rule through fear." She met his eyes. "Including you, eventually. You think I fear you?" "I think you fear what happens when you're not the only source of power in your territory." Thane was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You're right. When you stopped me from killing Marcus, when your power filled that courtyard, I was afraid. Not of you, of losing control, of needing someone." He leaned forward. "But I've realized something these past weeks. Control is a cage. And I've been locked inside it so long I forgot what freedom felt like." "What does freedom feel like?" "Like trusting someone else to carry the weight." His hand covered hers on the table. "Like believing that two broken things can make something whole." Kira's breath caught. His touch was warm, steady, grounding. "We can't..." "Can't what?" "Care for each other. Too late. I started caring the moment you refused to kneel in that auction hall." "Thane, I can't be your mate. The complications, I'm not asking you to be my mate." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I'm asking you to be my partner, my equal. The balance to my strength, the wisdom to my command. What you are to the pack, be that to me." Tears burned Kira's eyes. No one had ever asked her to be herself, fully, completely, without apology or diminishment. "I'm still learning what that means," she whispered. "Then we'll learn together." He lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles, a gesture both tender and reverent. In that moment, Kira understood what the first bloodline had taught. That true partnership wasn't about possession or hierarchy. It was about two souls choosing to walk the same path, each making the other stronger. The door burst open. A warrior stumbled in, face pale. "My king, my lady, there's an army at the northern border, 500 strong. They're demanding we surrender the false Omega or face siege." Kira's blood ran cold. "Who leads them?" Alpha Cyrus of the Ironwood Pack. He's called a council of traditional alphas. They say the first bloodline is heresy, and you must be destroyed before you corrupt more packs with your weakness. Thane stood, battle instinct taking over. Ready the defenses. Send word to our allies. We fight. No, Kira said quietly. Everyone turned to her. This is what they want. War, violence, proof that I'm a threat. She stood, mind racing. If I fight, I become what they fear. If I hide, I prove their point. Then what do you suggest? Thane demanded. Kira felt the mark on her chest pulse warmly, and suddenly, she knew. The Pathfinder gift wasn't just about reading emotions or healing wounds. It was about seeing the path others couldn't. I'll go to them, she said, alone, unarmed, and I'll show them what the first bloodline truly means. Absolutely not, Thane growled. They'll kill you. Maybe, or maybe they'll listen. She faced him fully. You asked me to be your partner, your equal. Trust me to do this my way. The war in his eyes was visible. The alpha wanting to protect, the man wanting to believe. Finally, he nodded. But I'm coming with you, as witness, not warrior. Deal. Dawn broke cold and clear as Kira and Thane rode toward the Ironwood army. Behind them, the Frostborn fortress watched in tense silence. Ahead, 500 wolves waited in battle formation, banners snapping in the wind. Alpha Cyrus met them at the center of the field. He was massive, scarred, with eyes that held absolute certainty in his righteousness. The false Omega. You've saved me the trouble of dragging you from your tower. I'm not false, Kira replied calmly. I carry the mark of the first bloodline. The goddess herself placed it on my skin. The first bloodline was exterminated for a reason. They weakened our kind with their mercy, made us vulnerable to humans, to other predators. We don't need your poison spreading again. Kira dismounted and walked forward, stopping 10 feet from Cyrus. You say mercy is weakness. I say it's strength you've forgotten how to use. Pretty words won't save you, girl. I'm not trying to save myself. She unbuttoned her shirt and revealed the mark, glowing silver blue in the dawn light. I'm trying to save you, all of you, because the path you're on, ruling through fear, rejecting anything that threatens your power, it's killing what makes us wolves. And what's that? Cyrus sneered. Pack. Kira's voice rang out across the field. We're strongest when we're connected, when alpha strength is balanced by omega wisdom, when we protect the weak instead of culling them, when we choose the hard right over the easy wrong. She turned, addressing the entire army. The first bloodline didn't weaken our kind. They made us better, and you destroyed them because you were afraid of what better looked like. Murmurs rippled through the ranks. Cyrus's hand went to his sword. Enough philosophy. She's right. The voice came from within Cyrus's own pack. An older wolf stepped forward, scars covering his muzzle. I fought in the border wars 50 years ago. Before the first bloodline was gone, packs didn't war like we do now. We had councils, negotiations. The Omegas mediated disputes before they became bloodbaths. He looked at Cyrus. We've lost that, and we're worse for it. More voices joined, warriors questioning, Omegas weeping quietly. The certainty in Cyrus's army began to fracture. Silence! Cyrus roared. He drew his sword and advanced on Kira. I'll cut that blasphemous mark from your flesh myself. Kira closed her eyes and released her gift fully, letting it flow outward like a flood. She touched every wolf on that field, felt their fears and hopes and griefs. She showed them what she'd seen in her visions during training, the ancient packs where alphas and omegas ruled together, where strength and wisdom created societies that thrived instead of merely survived. She showed them what they could be again. The mark on her chest blazed like a star, and for a moment the goddess's presence descended, not as judgment, but as invitation. a choice offered to every wolf who'd come for war. Continue on the path of fear, or choose something better. Cyrus's sword clattered to the ground. He staggered, face twisted with something between rage and anguish. "You! What did you do to me?" "I showed you the truth," Kira said gently. "What you do with it is your choice." Behind Cyrus, his army began to kneel, not in submission, but in reverence, recognizing something their souls had been starving for: balance, purpose, a return to what they were meant to be. Thane moved to Kira's side, his hand finding hers. Together, they stood before the kneeling army, two halves of a whole that hadn't existed in centuries. Alpha and Omega, strength and wisdom, the future their ancestors had dreamed. Cyrus looked at them, something breaking in his eyes. "If I yield, will you teach us? Help us remember what we've forgotten." Kira met his gaze with absolute compassion. "That's all I've ever wanted to do." The tension shattered. Wolves began to shift, some weeping, others embracing. The army that had come for war became witnesses to a resurrection. As the sun climbed higher, Kira felt the mark on her chest settle into warmth, not burning, but glowing, the goddess's approval, not for winning, but for choosing mercy when violence would have been justified. Thane pulled her close, his lips brushing her temple. "You did it. You changed everything." "We did it," she corrected. "Your trust, my gift, balance." He kissed her then, soft and reverent, in front of 500 wolves who'd come to destroy her and stayed to witness her coronation as something new. Not a queen, not a subject, but a pathfinder reborn. The first of a new generation, the beginning of balance restored. Years would pass. Kira would train other Omegas with the mark, hidden bloodlines emerging from exile to reclaim their purpose. Thane would reshape his kingdom into a council of equals, where Alpha strength and Omega wisdom ruled together. They would face challenges, traditionalists who clung to the old ways, enemies who saw balance as threat. But they would face them together, two broken souls who'd learned that their fractures were where the light got in. And every night, under the watchful gaze of the goddess's moon, Kira would trace the mark on her chest and remember. She'd been thrown to the wolves, rejected and sold. But she'd found the one wolf who saw her not as property, but as partner, who taught her that redemption wasn't earned through suffering, it was chosen through love. And that was the greatest gift the first bloodline had ever given. The knowledge that every ending could become a beginning if you had the courage to stand when the world told you to kneel. If your heart beat alongside ours, like, comment and subscribe, because every soul that joins our moon keeps the flame of redemption alive.